Hey everyone, today we have a super special drop. This is Onyx Coffee Lab's Thanksgiving flight. You're gonna get 4 coffees in a really fancy box, and it's only going to be available through Fellow for the next 12 hours. Limited number, limited quantity. I have here with me Lance Hedrick. Came all the way here to San Francisco. We're at our Fellow playground, and he's gonna be talking about the coffees and showing you how to brew them, all the recipes, and it's going to be super fun. I'm gonna have Lance now tell you all about these coffees.
Oh yeah. Came all the way from Arkansas to San Francisco in California to brew some bean juice. So we have some fun coffees in this flight. First of all, headlining it is the Micro Lit, all right? This is a micro lot coffee that we sourced a few months back. Whenever we released that Costa Rica Las Lajas Natural, you all dug it. And so we had this little micro lot sitting around that we didn't really know what to do with. We were like, this is a special lot. And we decided, you know what? The peeps on the Fellow drops were like digging it last time. And we had this dope little honey processed lot. We decided to make it an exclusive Fellow drop. It's delicious, all right? You know what I'm saying? Brian knows what I'm saying.
I know what he's saying.
He knows what I'm saying. So that's gonna be the first coffee that's gonna kind of like open the pathways to deliciousness, all right? Your taste buds are gonna be singing all Thanksgiving. Second coffee we have is a really nice, sweet, tasty, stone fruity, washed Guatamala Finca Isnul. Now, Danny Perez, who is a producer of this place, has won the COE, the Cup of Excellence in Guatemala multiple times. Wonderful producer. We have a great relationship with him at Onyx. Tasty, tasty coffee. Excited for that. It's a big old Pacamara, which is, you're gonna pull that out and you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, how can my grinder grind this behemoth of a bean? Then you're gonna grind it and it's gonna put off these fragrances of just so much sweetness, brown sugar, and some stone fruit like baked peaches. You're gonna be like, oh goodness. Next, we have Tropical Weather, which is a favorite of our staff at Onyx. It is a brilliant idea that our green buyer came up with. Dakota came up with this idea to make a year-round, or as year-round as we can, Ethiopia blend. So it's a half washed, half natural Ethiopia. So it's all heirloom variety. So technically it's a single origin, but it's a really tasty, really fruity, really sweet coffee that you're gonna love on espresso, on pour over, whatever you're gonna do. It's gonna be fantastic. To round it all up, we have this crazy, sweet, boozy, delicious, just like, you're gonna be like, oh my, is this blueberry pie or is this coffee? It's an Ethiopia Bombe, a naturally processed Ethiopia Bombe. When you taste it, when it hits your lips, you're gonna be like, thinking you had just eaten pie with your fingers, but in reality, you were sipping coffee. So get ready, make sure that you get this drop, which can be done through text or on the website only for the next 12 hours. And there's a limited amount. So guess what? If 8 hours in, they're all gone, you snooze, you lose. So get ready.
Yeah, and all of that ends at 9 p.m. Pacific time.
Pacific Standard Time, okay?
Yeah. And now I'm gonna have Lance show you how to brew each of these coffees.
One by one. All right, so the first coffee we're gonna be doing today is the headliner of this box, the Micro Lit coffee. Now this is a Costa Rica Las Lajas honey processed, yellow honey processed coffee. Now this is a blend of Catuai and Caturra varieties, but today we're gonna take a look at this. So you can see kind of the roast level here. It's a pretty light medium type of roast level. This is gonna really accentuate the sweetness in this coffee. Now, this was a coffee that you all loved when it was naturally processed. So this is an exclusive micro lot that we have decided to give to Fellow exclusively. So all of you on this drop are gonna be able to enjoy this, and only you. So get ready for the brew. I'm going to grind 1 click above the very bottom. This is what we're gonna be doing for that Costa Rica Las Lajas. I'm brewing with 206, 207 degree water. So I'm using 23 grams of coffee and I'm gonna use 390 grams of water. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and start. My first pour is going to be just over double the weight of the coffee. We're going up to 50 grams. And I'm gonna replace my kettle on the base and I'm gonna do a little swirl just to ensure I have full saturation of those grounds. Now I'm doing a longer than typical bloom. I'm doing right at a minute because I really wanna ensure that those grounds are as saturated as we can get them. My second pour is still going to be less. So if you see here on this second pour, there's gonna be a lot of gases that escape. So I'm gonna release those gases with some water, not wasting a lot of it for that final cup. Now my third pour, I'm gonna bring up to 200. And I'm pouring from pretty high up to cause some turbulence down in the deep part of the bed. I'm gonna do just one more little swirl, and we're gonna allow that to drain down. And the next pour will be at about 2 minutes and 15 seconds. So at 2:15, I'm gonna pour up to 300. So here we go. And don't worry if that bed dries out. You're not gonna lose enough temperature in that bed to really make any difference. So there we go, up to 300, replacing the kettle every pour on that. And I'm just gonna let it brew down this time. Now at 2 minutes and 45 seconds, I'm gonna do my final 90-gram pour. And this will be it for us. So as you see, the grounds have surfaced in between these pours, which is going to allow me to add some extra agitation each time that I pour. And there we go. We have finished our brew at 400, and that final drawdown is going to finish up around 320. So there you are. You can see that bed, nice and flat, and tons of tropical fruits, really sweet, brown sugar on the nose. And I'm going to invite Haley from the fellow tasting team to come enjoy some with me. Come on, Haley.
All right, thanks so much.
There you go.
Cheers.
Doing all right today?
Doing all right.
All right, well, let's enjoy some micro-lit coffee. Let's go and get some of that aroma. What are you smelling there?
Picked up on a lot of just like a very specific type of sweetness, maybe cranberry.
Cranberry?
Yeah.
I was thinking like boysenberry, something like that.
Yeah, definitely in that vein and in that realm.
Yeah, it's definitely like a tart berry, but there's a sweetness that's underlying it. Mm-hmm. And I'm getting some rich raw honey. Oh yeah, that berry. There's definitely a boysen type berry. It's not as tart as the smell would tell me, but I definitely get some like a boysenberry. What are your thoughts?
Still on the nose, I'm getting cranberry. Mm-hmm. But tasting right at the front, it's that boysenberry, like very specific type of sweetness. As
coffee cools, some of that acidity can become more prominent, and it really changes the lingering effects of the coffee. So I'm assuming this boysenberry will translate into what Haley over here was smelling on the aroma. So it's going to become more maybe tart, probably more cranberry, probably some green apple. All right, what did you taste now that it's cooled down?
I really just right on the money, green apple.
Green apple?
Like a really like a ripe green apple. That acidity, that sweetness, that tartness really did come out though as it cooled down, which is really insane. It even has a slightly different aroma and presence there.
Sure. All right, so that is the first coffee in Micro Lit. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
It's always a pleasure. And let's move on to the second coffee in the Micro Lit fellow exclusive box. So now we're going to brew up the Guatamala Finca Isnul. It's a washed processed coffee that is a Pacamara. So check this out. When I say it's a big bean, I mean look at this. So for this brew, I'm going to use a slightly higher temperature water. I'm going to go up to 209 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to use 25 grams of coffee ground at the finest setting on a calibrated ode, which is down at the 1. Because this is a washed coffee, it's going to be a little less soluble than some of these other coffees that are heavily processed. So in order to up our extraction, we're going to go as fine as we can on here. And we're going to up the temperature of our water. This is about the grind size here. That's right at table salt. All right? Maybe a little coarser, but not much. All right, so I've preheated it. We have a warm brewer. I've leveled out the bed of grounds. I'm gonna tear my scale, and then we're gonna start the timer. My bloom, I'm actually doing a hefty bloom. I'm going all the way up to 75, so I'm doing three times the weight of my grounds. Do a slight little swirl here just to ensure full even saturation and to get these coffee grounds that are up in the folds, make sure that they're saturated as well. And I'm gonna let this bloom for a full minute. At 1 minute, which is right now, I'm gonna pour all the way up to 150. So I'm just doubling again, I'm just doubling my first pour. 150, all right? Just a little something to ensure I'm getting those grounds out of the folds. Now I'm pouring from 150 to 250. So a 100 gram pour all the way up. Now what this is doing, filling it all the way up, I'm able to increase that temperature because I need to have some thermal stability for this brew in order to maximize, again, that extraction. Now at 2 minutes and 15 seconds, I'm gonna slowly pour until I'm at 400 grams. So a 1:16 ratio. So I'm gonna pour just slowly. If I pour too quickly, I won't be able to get all of this water in. On top of that, I don't want to add too much agitation here near the end. When we're close to the end of our extraction phase, a lot of those bitters are just raring to get out and ruin our cup. I don't like dry cups of coffee, so what I'm doing is I am just barely pouring in here, really lessening the agitation of my kettle flow, and just slowly building up to 400 grams. And there we are. And now we're just gonna wait. See the bed come out pretty level, even without having to swirl or stir or knock or anything like that, because we did such a gentle pour near the end. And there we have it at 4 minutes and 12 seconds. Guatamala Finca Isnul, a washed Pacamara coffee from the heavens. This cup of coffee won't taste nearly as good without a taste buddy. So I'm gonna call my taste buddy, Brian Kwan. Come on out, Brian, as I pour us up some delicious cups of this gem of a coffee. Oh, yes. What are you smelling there?
I get definitely some amount of nuttiness in the smell here.
Like an almond type thing?
Yes, definitely
I get toasted almond.
It's a very subtle coffee.
Sure.
Because I feel like there's a lot of more complexity in here that you gotta wait for it to cool down before you can taste.
And here we go. I'm just gonna cool it down. Yeah, the citric acidity rises as it cools, and I'm slowly starting to get kind of like a blood orange thing coming on out. That mandarin, the softness of the mandarin is turning more into like something like a blood orange. It's really intriguing coffee because it seems to be subtle because the notes aren't loud and they're not like in your face.
When it was hot and now it's cooling down, the transition to that acidity has been very smooth. It is very subtle though.
Sure.
Not a very impactful, like here's now suddenly all this acidity, and I actually really like that.
Complex.
Very complex, yeah.
Well, if you want a complex coffee from my friend Danny Perez at Guatamala Finca Isnul, that's washed, and that Brian would describe as superbly, wonderfully delicious, well then you better get on that drop, okay? So now we're gonna move on to the tropical weather. This is a blend of a washed and a natural Ethiopia. Now the variety is that of heirloom. Now what does that mean, you might ask? Well, it's kind of a catch-all term. Out in Ethiopia, what happens is a lot of farmers will take their harvest and they combine it with other farmers. And so what you have is a lot of unknown varieties that are filling up these coffees. So they all look somewhat similar, but there are minor differences you'll be able to spot. So you're gonna have a really cool, sweet, somewhat clean, somewhat funky, vibrant coffee that's gonna be a fruit bomb in your face. This is gonna be on one, the finest setting on the ode. All right, so I'm gonna grind right here and then have my water set to 205 degrees. Let's take a little whiff. This is what I recommend. When you have something like this with like a naturally processed coffee in it, go ahead, give it a little shaky shake, give it a little. And now let's look at how fine we have this ground. Look at that. Similar to that Guatemala, we have it at like, really it's like table sugar. See, 5 grams, and we're doing it to our usual 400 grams of water. Now, I'm doing a simple recipe on this as, just to ensure that it's easy to follow, easy to replicate. So very simply, that 205 degree water, we're gonna start our timer and we're gonna just pour up to 50 grams. Boom. And on this one, we're not gonna do anything to it. We're not gonna shake, we're not gonna swirl. This is the everyman brew. Everybody's gonna just dump water in, have a good time, and you're gonna have a delicious. We're just gonna pour in, we're gonna let it bloom for a minute, because that's my magic number, is a minute. So after 1 minute, we're gonna pour our second pour, okay? And that's gonna be another 50-gram pour. So in this, I'm calling it like a double bloom technique, okay? We're doing 2 blooms to offset all of that gas, because we want to ensure we have as much of those sugars out of the grounds as possible. So when we do the second one, boom. See all those gases come out? We're just gonna pour up to 100. Just slowly swirling out, and then back to the center, 100. Replace the kettle as always. We're gonna let this go to 1.5 minutes. Then we're gonna pour a hefty 100-gram pour, another 100-gram pour, and then another 100-gram pour. So we're gonna have 3 more pours, and then we're gonna be done with this brew. We're gonna do it every 30 seconds. There we are. At 2 minutes, we're gonna do yet another 100-gram pour. Now we're gonna do one more at 2.5 minutes, up to 400. And here we go. We're going back to the center to 400. There we go. Done pouring at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, and we're gonna let it just drain out. And once that draining is done, I have a special guest that I'm gonna invite out for a little. So we finished up at about 328. I'm gonna take this brewer off the top. We're gonna take a look at that bed. We didn't have to swirl, we didn't have to level, we didn't have to do anything. We have a nice flat bed. So this smells, oh, it's like those Nerds ropes, like Twizzlers, Nerds ropes, those like, it's like super sweet confectionery type sugar that's like candy-like. It's very, I mean, it's like tropical weather, you know? Today, my special guest is a good friend, Jake Miller. Come on over, Jake. I'm gonna pour us some coffees to share together. Here we go. Woo-wee. I labored over this coffee, so if you don't enjoy it, my feelings will be hurt, so the pressure's on. Cheers, my friend. getting a lot of deep berry notes, a lot of like red fruits on the nose, but as I'm sipping, it's a lot of deep berry, like super ripe raspberry and really nice blueberries. What are you getting?
Stone fruit cocktail.
Ooh.
With a little cocoa.
Ayo, coming out hot. I like that. I like that better than mine.
I'm just glad you're here.
This is why you drink with
It's
friends.
good. We're drinking good coffee together.
Look at this. Look at this. Stone fruit cocktail. I'm changing my answer. I'm resubmitting, Trebek. This is stone fruit cocktail. That's very good. Wow. Dead on. Well, we got stone fruit cocktails here, and we're gonna enjoy this while y'all are sitting at home not enjoying it in this situation, which is embarrassing for you. One more cheers.
Cheers.
Stone fruit cocktail, tropical weather. All right, and the final coffee to round out the Thanksgiving flight, where you can enjoy these coffees with your friends and family during the wonderful time of year where we eat some really good food, we get really stuffed, and we take a little afternoon nap. This is the coffee that is a naturally processed Ethiopia Bombay. This is gonna be like dessert. This is the end of your 4-course meal, okay? Or 3-course and then your dessert, I guess. We started off with that micro lit. We moved into that washed Guatamala Finca Isnul as like an aperitif, going into that tropical weather, which gave us some nice berries, but this one is gonna blow our minds back. It's gonna be like blueberry pie, okay? This is the one that we're gonna be licking our fingers, so excited that we just had this delicious pie crust filled with just delicious berries and fruit. So this is what our coffees look like. Again, we have some heirloom, all right? And this is naturally processed. So it's gonna be a really soluble coffee. So what I'm actually gonna do is updose my normal recipe. I'm going 26 grams in, I'm doing 400 grams out. So those 4 recipes are all very similar. First was 23 grams to 390 grams. Second was 25 to 400. Third was 25 to 400. This is gonna be 26 to 400. This is supposed to be one of those extraordinarily sweet, extremely vibrant, silky cups of coffee that you sit and you mull over. You don't chug it, you don't throw it back. You sit there and you just enjoy the fruits that just blossom over your tongue, okay? We're doing 1 click up, all right? So let me grind this and then we'll get going. And so we're doing 26 in, 400 out, which is less than a 1 to 16 recipe. And I'm also going at 205 degrees, which is 96 Celsius. All right, let me level the bed out. And then here we go. I'm gonna do a bigger bloom once more on this one. I'm going up to 75. So I'm just giving a little swirl in order to make sure that water is touching all the grounds. All right, at 1 minute, we're gonna pour all the way up to 200 grams. All right, now this is a little unconventional, but what I'm going to do is I'm gonna let this fully drain out. We're gonna wait until 2 minutes to pour our third pour. We roasted this one a bit darker than we normally do, and it's going to have a lot of flavor. So at 2 minutes, I'm going up to 300 grams. So my first 2 pours, I'll let rest a minute each. So they drained all the way down. And the next 2, I'm gonna let rest 30 seconds in between. So the final pour is going to be at 2.5 minutes, and our final drain time should be around 3:15. So at 2.5 minutes, I'm gonna do 100 more grams. So we poured slowly in order to make sure we don't overflow. We pulled it all the way up, so we have a lot of heat going on near the end. Now, because we did that 200 grams in those first 2 minutes, which is quite a lot of water to be pouring that rapidly that early, what I'm doing now is I am allowing the heat to come up as high as possible near the end to pull out the sugars we can right before we do too much extraction. But I'm doing this in order to really accentuate that acidity that's going to really sing in the cup. It's going to be incredibly vibrant, really sweet, really floral, really aromatic. That's what we're trying to get at with this brew style. It actually brewed right at 4 minutes, which means that it was grabbing a lot of those sugars near the end, slowing down that brew, and there we are. We got that blueberry jam ready to be slurped. All right, so for this final tasting special guest, I've got my friend George. Come on over, George. We're gonna pour some of this up and we're gonna enjoy our dessert coffee.
Sweet.
Let's just hear what George has to say. What are you feeling?
It's fruity.
Oh, it's very fruity.
And there's a tea flavor.
Hey.
Maybe like, kind of, I mean, it's not too different from a black tea, but I feel like there's also, it could even be a fruitier kind of touch on that. Mm-hmm. Not exactly an Earl Grey kind of thing, more like a, you know,
some sort of herbal
tea, hibiscus,
fruity
maybe.
Hibiscus, yeah. Lots of, ooh, it's very fruity. Lots of like blueberry, raspberry, cherry, things like that. It's just like a conglomeration of mixed berries.
I got to learn to make coffee like this because I do the same thing sometimes.
You know, with some of these coffees
Doesn't
that
come
are
out the
this
same.
soluble, you just got to dump the water in, kind of like with a tea. So some of them brew themselves, right? Well, I hope you
Otherwise,
enjoy.
yeah. Thank you. Nice one.
Fantastic. This is George, everyone. Lovely lad. Likens it to
Debatable.
tea.
Debatable.
Don't debate me on this. I'll win. Make sure you get the drop. Or you're going to be upset. Okay. Okay.
So that was Onyx Coffee Lab's Thanksgiving flight. I want to thank Lance for coming all the way here to San Francisco to film with us, to talk about the coffees and show you guys how to brew. I hope that was a lot of fun, and I want to thank Lance for coming all the way over here.
Thanks for having me. I hope that all of my nonsense I was spieling out was helpful to you at home. And again, try those recipes on other coffees, but these are what I recommend for these, for consistency, for repeatability, and to show off to your friends the delicious, tasty, oh my goodness, your tongue is melting because all the sugar is so yummy, coffees for Thanksgiving, all right? Share it with your friends, share it with your family, or you're a Scrooge and I will disown you. So thank you again, fellow. You all rock.
And if you have any questions with this coffee, feel free to leave that in the comments below. If you want to find Lance, his socials are going to be linked down right here, and they're going to be in the description below. And thank you again for spending the time to watch this video and hang out with us.
Thanks
See
very
you
much.
later.
Cheers.